Microphone is being checked. I do want to introduce myself. My name is Monica George Fields, and I am the Senior Fellow for School Innovation for the Regents Research Fund. And a new work within my office will be teacher leader effectiveness. So now that teacher leader effectiveness has moved from sort of the matrix and number and rubric selection and plan processes, now the commissioner and board are trying to shift our thinking from that, the compliance and the APPR thinking, to how do we use this information to support our teachers and school leaders. And so some of that conversation happened this morning, and we'll be continuing that conversation with you throughout the school year. And I want to also introduce my colleagues from South Huntington, our co-facilitators here today with us, Dr. Bernardo, and we have Dr. Bloom, and we have Dr. Harris, Mrs. Harris, and we have my three esteemed co-facilitators who will be talking to you more about the practical side of family engagement and how it's actualized within their school district, a very successful school district with this concept of family engagement and other areas. Okay? We're good to go?
We're all set,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. There is a protocol that we'll be using for our time today. I will be presenting. I'm going to try to speed up my presentation to take off some time so that we end on time, and that the district will have their full complement of time to do their presentation. And after that, after we both present, I'm just going to look at my clock so I just keep track. We are going to give you time at your tables to reflect on what you've heard. And then come up with 2 to 4 questions that you'd like to ask us. And we will answer those questions, and after you get, so that's just like further clarification. And after we go through that process, you'll actually have time at your tables to do some planning, some thinking. So how does this relate to our district? Where are we, or our school? Where are we? And what should we be thinking about? When we go back to the ranch and we actually put pen to paper and boots to the ground, what are we going to think about and do differently? Okay? So we want to get out of the stage of just thinking and get into the mode of action. Let's get it done. So I want to start off with a quick conversation around the definition of family engagement. And the reason that this is the first slide in this presentation is because, and as you can see, I'm going to get out of the way. As you can see, it focuses on the report, A New Wave of Evidence in 2002, and new work that Karen Mapp has come out with. Karen Mapp is a professor at Harvard University. You'll see her referenced throughout this PowerPoint. She's someone that I work very closely with around family engagement. I worked very closely with her when I was a school leader in New York City, and I continue to bring her to the state to work closely with and inform our work around the diagnostic tool for school and district effectiveness. And so the reason I put this up first is because there is this quest out there to develop a common understanding and language and definition around what family engagement is. And we're going to go down a little road of the differences between parent involvement and family engagement. And I'm going to talk to you briefly about why it's important for us to understand that there are nuanced differences. And oftentimes in education, we miss those nuanced details. And they are the things that matter most. Okay? So I'm going to take us down that road a bit. I'm not going to read the slides to you because I know you all can read. We're all educated. And we'll make sure that you have this PowerPoint available. So, why is engaging families important? Why do we talk about family engagement versus parent engagement? Traditionally, when we think about parents, we're thinking about biological parents. And what research has shown is that when people use terminology like parent involvement, what they're really thinking about in that catchment of parent is either the biological parent, and it sometimes extends naturally to the grandparent, but it oftentimes does not extend as far-reaching as it needs to be for the students within our school communities. So when I say far-reaching, I'm talking about not just those children who live with their older sister or their older brother or perhaps their biological aunts. They are community aunties, community uncles, community godparents. That's my godmother. Community cousins. And when we talk about community aunties, community uncles, community brothers, community sisters, these are people who are not biologically attached to that child. And schools and districts who do not use as culturally as family as a part of their regular language sometimes do not see or honor these community ties that our children have. And when you miss that tie, you are most times missing reaching the child. There are some good reasons, however, why we sometimes hesitate to reach out to the community auntie. And some of it has to do with confidentiality. So we don't want to step across that line of just talking about the child to the child's legal parent, right? Or the person who has legal connections to that child. And in those cases, then it becomes the schools or district's responsibility to get that formal permission to reach out to those people. So the grandmother or grandparent who's actually housebound or too old really to run to the school every time the child gets into something and has this community auntie who's helping him or her with the child, it's our responsibility to say to the grandmother, why don't you bring that person to the meeting with you? Because once we can develop a relationship with that person in front of you, we know that that person now becomes an extended part of your family, and we can ask you for permission, have you sign something, is it okay to have these conversations with that person? But we do have to reach out. We do need to know who these people are because we don't want to miss any opportunity to connect with the child. And that's why we start using family engagement. Family meaning anyone that child or that child's parent or that child's guardian recognizes as a family member who has influence in that child's life. And as you can see, sometimes community-based organizations take that place also. They are actually just involved as raising the child as whoever the child is living with at times, right? Involvement versus engagement. We are trying to shift our thinking from just being involved, which is more receiving information. I may ask you to do something, and when I ask you to do it, that's when I expect you to respond, to being fully engaged. And sometimes that can be a little scary. I have a school of 1,800 students. Now, if I was even just looking at the traditional parents, that's 3,600 adults. I don't know if I want 3,600 people engaged. I just want you to answer me when I ask you a question. When I look at you and ask you a question, that's when I want to hear your voice. when I have 3,600 people in the same room. But we know that that's not going to get us what we need from the students in front of us. So it's about managing engagement and being very clear around the space and time when you can have these reciprocal conversations. So I was good with having a 2-pocket folder with a paper that had 3 columns, who, what, contact, and a pin. And whenever I bumped into someone and they told me something, I flipped it open, wrote it down. They thought they were the most important person in my life. Oh, she's writing my stuff down. And it just allowed me to keep track of what parents were asking about. And then I could always go back and assign from my list of things that I collected that day to the appropriate person. Because I don't want to get into a conversation with you where it seems like I'm cutting you off. So that reciprocal conversation and those actions that actually get people to be more engaged are the actions that you really want to take, right? Not just involved, not just doing what you want them to do when you want them to do it, but I really need you to come and talk to me. So this is where I'm just going to slow down just a bit because these are the slides I wanted to get to. Karen Mapp describes schools in 4 different ways. The first way, we have schools in our districts, right? We may lead schools ourselves or inherit schools that are fortress schools. Fortress schools are schools where you come when I tell you to come, most of the time, and there's a small group of people who are our go-to parents. The district calls and says, we need a parent representative from your school. Well, I have about 5 of them. I have them on speed dial. Those are the people I call. They're usually a part of the parent association, and the president, she'll go. All the other parents are really sitting on the outskirts of the best circle. So I want you to think about, if you're here as a school representative, I want you to think about if you have a fortress school. A lot of the schools talk their way out of engagement and into involvement by thinking and saying things like, Common Core is way too complicated to explain to my parents. They'll never get it. So you're not even open for the dialogue. You just want them to receive the information you're willing to give them. Do you have a fortress school? Come if we call school. We do a little bit more than a fortress school. Our doors are open just a tad more. You don't have to actually squeeze in. We'll actually open the door, but we close it when we want to. Do you have that kind of school? We do a robust communication to parents when we want you there for that parent-teacher conference for report card night. That's when we start calling and we start reaching out and we start grabbing people by the hand and arm when it's time for them to come in and get these report cards. Other than that, we're not doing that type of active recruitment into our school building. It's when we need you for the musical, the annual event, the one and done. Come if you call. Guidance counselors are usually the principal's proxy and teacher's proxy. Something happens, the parent is notified or contacted by a person in an office, and when they come to the school, that's where they go. They really don't have access to other people. Even their child's teacher, when it comes to those types of situations. Unless that person reaches out to them. But there's usually someone to do that work for them. Open door school. Our doors are open. We have routines. We have protocols for addressing our problems. We stay within those parameters, though. We have some formal decision-making protocols in place. We conduct home visits when necessary. It's usually one person, family worker, or someone else in the district. So we do that. We want you to understand what's happening in the school, but understand your place now. You're not a full partner where you're fully questioning and engaging into our processes. But you're welcome. You come in. There are times when the school doors are open. It's not that bad. It's a good place to start. And so Karen Mapp describes those schools as open door schools. Lots of activities, lots of events. Carnival, Winter Festival, Halloween Parade. There are several opportunities for parents to come into the building. Still, however, on our terms. And then we have the partnership school, where you are a full partner. Some of these schools have a first month, sometime in September. They don't just have open night, curriculum night for parents to learn about the curriculum. They put in their calendar a half day in September. Upfront parent-teacher afternoon and evening, where parents come to the school and tell the teacher their goals for that year, for their children. Not the other way around. Full partnership. We're in this together. Where's your child? What's happening? What's going on? This is what I know. This is what I think. Here are my plans. What do you think? How has your child responded to this before? Who's the person in the building who reaches out and your child responds to best? You tell me. Those types of schools aren't afraid of parents raising their hand and asking a question. I want to know what you have, what you're thinking about when you go home, because it's likely that your child will hear that thinking, and then I'm just guessing by your child's behavior when they return to school, and now I have to address it or try to fix it. Tell me, so that we can be clear about what's happening in this building. The parents are reached when things are happening not only by a guidance counselor or family worker, but every teacher in the building is considered to be a parent coordinator. Every teacher in the building is expected to make purposeful, positive parent or family outreach several times a month. Tracking how many times I contacted or said something to a parent or family member at the end of the day that was positive about the child. Not only tracking how many times I had to send the child to the guidance counselor, or how many times the child was in a problem, was involved in a conflict. Not just tracking how many times I had to reach out to that parent to say, you need to check your child's homework, he or she's coming to school, it's half done or not done. How many times they're tracking, how many times they called that parent to say, great job. One of Monica's peers was crying in the cafeteria because she fell and skinned her knee, and I heard that Monica, stepped up and took her to the nurse. Great job. Can you continue to encourage her to do things like that? All week long, Monica came to school with her homework done. Wasn't all correct, but it was all done. I'll take care of the rest. If you can just continue to do that, then I'll know for sure what she's able and capable of doing on her own, and I can help bridge that gap. Great job. Monica didn't lose her scarf. It's cold out there. I saw her bundled up. How many times are you reaching out just to have those conversations? Why are they important? Because then you'll have less incidents of the parent ignoring your call when something goes wrong. They know you'll call them for the good stuff as much as you'll call them for the stuff that they need to address. Full partnership. Just can't have it your way. Schools aren't Burger King. Full partnership. You either want the relationship or you don't. Right? So that's the work she does with partnership schools, and there are different descriptors here. So we all know the impact of schools that have robust family engagement systems going on with them, and it's clear. It's not the answer, it's not the silver bullet, but it certainly is a step in the right direction. You're not on your own. You're not alone. Sometimes we don't know who the person is in a child's life that can reach that child. But if we can touch quite a few people who have access to that child, one of them may be that person. And that's why we have to approach it in a global way, because it does make a difference. Containing the ghosts in the room. It's really big with Karen Mapp's research and what she talks about. So ghosts in the room actually talks about, and that's Casper the Friendly Ghost. Ghosts in the room is actually this concept of what parents bring and what families bring to them when they come to the school to talk to you about their children. In the room is usually not the two people who are sitting there face to face. In the room are the two physical bodies of the two people sitting there face to face having a conversation, but you have a lot of ghosts in the room as well. They bring a lot of what they know about the school with them, their experiences about the school with them. If they were a child in that school, or their brother, or their sister, or their cousin, or their neighbor, who ended up in special ed, never learning to read, dropping out, in jail, on drugs, single parent, young, dead, everything you're telling them about their child and their child needing help and maybe they need to sign this paper, you're not just telling that to them, you're also telling that to all the ghosts in the room. And they're not just hearing you, they're hearing you and looking at all the ghosts in the room. You say special ed, Maurice pops up in their head. You say AIS, that used to be me. I remember when my mother signed those papers. Look what it got me. Look where it got me. You say counseling, that didn't work for my cousin. We have to honor the experiences that people may have had with our very own schools. New name, new number, same building, same experiences. Their children aren't doing well, someone in their family didn't do well. Were the interventions successful 15 years ago? Probably not. I don't know I don't know if I can trust you. Yet, we expect families and parents or whoever is in charge of this child, guardians, to come in and just take our word for it. And we don't consider the ghosts in the room. And we don't even consider the ghosts in the room that we bring with us sometimes. Because we're sitting there looking at a parent and we're saying to ourselves, I remember you when you were 12. Nothing's changed, huh? We bring our own ghosts to the room too, our own biases, okay? So this is a very important concept to talk about when you go back to your school communities and districts. Systemic efforts. You want to celebrate the things that you do well. Everyone does something well. Take that and use it as a catalyst to just make it grander. How do you take your one-shot event, your winter fest that's very successful in December every year, your carnival that's very successful in April and May every year? How do you take those practices and expand them so that you can have more of a systemic system to reach out to the families in your community? Celebrate what you have done, but stay away from boutique projects. Boutique projects, the projects that happen when only certain parents can show up because it's just not convenient for everyone. Standalone projects. How do you take your standalone, not get rid of it, but how do you take it and expand it throughout the entire year so that there are tentacles that are reaching and people understand there's a follow-up here, there's a follow-up again, and there's a follow-up again. And then I talked a bit about celebrating your success, reevaluating the roles that people have involved in sustaining achievement. Sometimes the people it takes to create the achievement are not the same people you need to sustain it. Right? Sometimes that happens. Don't take for granted that we're successful, we can move away from this purposeful, intentional work we're doing with family engagement. Don't think this is something that will take care of itself. If your family community is anything like my oldest daughter, they will never be at a point where you don't have to remind them of something. And she's 27. Never. Okay? Doesn't end.
No, it doesn't.
So don't take for granted that you can step away from this work. You may be able to shift it to other people to monitor and care for it, but it still needs to always stay up front and a priority. It can't fall on the totem pole. It has too much potential for impact to take a chance. And then I end with my information here, and you will have our access to these slides, and we're going to continue our time together. I want to invite our colleagues and our partners up from South Huntington. Is it South? Yeah, okay. South Huntington, who will talk to you about the practical side. So I told you a bit about the research, and now they're going to talk to you about some of the things that they actually do. Okay? I didn't tell you this, but in your handbook, on page 29, there are some guiding questions for you to consider as you sit here.
Probably don't. Should be okay.
Okay. If you don't need me to use it, then I won't. You let me know.
Just use it anyway,
Yeah.
so I can pick it up off the other
Okay,
mic would be great.
excellent. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Jared Bloom. I supervise the Office of Curriculum and Instruction for the South Huntington School District. Just to give you a little background on South Huntington, we have with us Dr. Bernardo, who is our Superintendent of Schools, Ms. Jackie Harris, who is our Deputy Superintendent. We are recipients of STLE 1 and 2, so we have been very, very fortunate. South Huntington, and I am also the grant coordinator for both STLE grants. We have a 40% poverty rate in South Huntington, 13% ELS, and 9% special ed. We do have a building configuration where we have primary schools, intermediate schools, a really unusual 6th grade center. Then we have a middle school, which is 7th and 8th grades, and high school. So that is our configuration for the school district. And so now we want to kind of just talk a little bit about where we started. And so Deputy Superintendent Harris is going to talk a little bit about the research behind the work and how we started with parent and family engagement.
All right, thanks, Jared. I'll also say about South Huntington that we have about 6,000 students. Right? We are about 60 or so percent white, 25 or so percent Hispanic, a little less than 10%. That number keeps going up and down. 10% African American or Black, and then we have 10% other around. So we have very diverse school districts, grades 12, K to 12. Suffolk County, wonderful district, great place to live, a great place to raise your kids, but we need to have our community really more involved in what was happening in our schools. And good for us, Hugh Price from the National Urban League had just written a book about mobilizing schools. How can communities work together with their schools to help their children succeed? We used his book as the premise of our work. Monica, thank you, because we went to our NAACP, our youth organizations, our pastors, our teachers union, our administrators union. We got everyone involved in reading the book together. And then we created something we call a community forum. Monthly, we get together to review the book. Not for this district to tell people anything about their children or their community, just to talk about the book. After we finished with the book, we started to talk about some concerns that the community had about suspensions in our schools. That's when we started our work.
I think the other thing that kind of came out of this that I know you've talked to me about certainly is this idea that we can't do this alone as a school district. This really has to be the whole village working together to make this happen. And as Monica talked about, it's not just the parents, it's everyone involved with these students' lives. And so that was really important, and I've attended a lot of the community forums since I've been in South Huntington, and it really is a great place for people to be able to let us know what we're doing well, what we're not, and things that we have to work on, ideas that they have, and we also can be sharing, and families can be sharing things that they can be doing in the community that maybe are not appropriate necessarily for the school to be working on. So it really is a shared partnership. So we want to talk a little bit about some of the focus groups that we have in South Huntington, groups that we rely on to talk to get feedback from on a regular basis, because although we do talk to parents on a regular basis and guardians on a regular basis, and our teachers are constantly and principals are constantly talking, we also have these focus groups. And so we have our PTA Council, which meets on a monthly basis, and the community forum, Project Excel staff and parents, which I'll let Jackie talk a little bit about.
All right, so our Project Excel program, if you ever hear of kids at risk, whatever they're at risk of, we have kids who we don't believe are going to be as successful as we have hoped without some intervention. We call that our Project Excel program, and we use our students, our staff, our parents, our families as a focus group, a place to get information. Our mentoring program.
Mentoring program is absolutely fantastic, where we have mentors from local companies, organizations that work with our kids on a regular basis, and they also are providing feedback to us. And then partnerships with local companies and organizations. We've made strategic partnerships with various companies and local organizations to work with us, whether they're working with us on grants, or they're working with us on independent projects, or they're working with us on after-school programs. We have engaged them as part of this process because, again, as a school district, we cannot do this alone. We really have to do this as an entire community, and broader than the community, all of the local businesses and organizations have to help us to do this great work as well. So I'm now going to turn it over to our superintendent, who's going to talk a little bit about how do we get the message out to parents.
One of the things we do is we break down the roles. Jared and Jackie are considerably smarter than me, so they handle the pieces on the real nuts and bolts of the operation, and they kind of send me out as often as possible to deliver the message, put forth the message, write about the message, talk about the message, and get our team out in the field. Every day, every minute, from Eagle Scout ceremonies to Boy Scout inductions to carnivals to Knights of Columbus meetings, to be out in the field every single minute of every single day, delivering a coherent message about our desire to bring the community together, to lift all boats. One of the things, the message we try to spread is we have a community that truly looks like America. We have a community that's not a sterilized community. We have a community that looks, acts, speaks like the United States of America. We don't run from that. What we do is believe that we can be one of the places that proves it can work. So we have a weekly newsletter. It is a multi-page, 6, 7, 8-page newsletter that comes out from our office. And in fact, we were sitting at a table 3 hours ago and decided we're going to have it translated to Spanish now, starting next week. So, of course, we emailed our personnel guy and said, find money, because the three of us just came up with another cockamamie idea. And that's what happens with this process. We kind of don't worry about how it's going to happen. We just say do it, and we figure out a way. We figure out the details later. We figure out how to pay for it. We figure out how to manage it after we figure out that it's a good idea. And in many ways, I always say, we're kind of the attorney's nightmares, because we just do it and we talk about it. And if the community wants to know about it, we discuss it, and then we worry about if it's on an agenda somewhere or appropriate to have done so. Because when you think about it, what do communities complain about? We don't know anything from the schools. Everything's hidden. They're insular organizations, right? There's only a select group of 5 people in the PTA who know anything. So we share everything. If it happened, it's in the newsletter. From a break-in to school at 2 in the morning, here's what happened, folks. Boom. To awards, the newsletter is always 80-90% positive. We talk about celebrating victories. We celebrate victories as if they were the Super Bowl, because they are the Super Bowl to that family, to that kid. And so that's our newsletter. Our spotlights, then once a quarter, all 17,000 residents get a magazine that actually celebrates the same things. And obviously we have to be a little bit more selective there, because the Weekly Blue will be, like I said, a 400-page magazine home, although we would. Our website, if you ever log on to our website is award-winning. It's updated daily. We happen to have a full-time public relations specialist assigned just to us. He is in our cabinet. He works with us. He's attached to the hip to us. If it happens and it's wonderful in this district, we want to know about it. We're not going to hide it. If it wasn't wonderful, we want them to know about it. And we're out there with that immediately.
And available in multiple languages as well.
And available in multiple languages. And again, we are constantly saying, if it's not working, we have to fix it. And that's what we thought of the newsletter a few minutes ago. School Messenger, the high school kids have a little bit of a ball every year in their senior follies, goofing on me about my school messages. That sometimes I guess I tend to overuse the system a little bit. But the bottom line is that people talk about being comforted by our message, by the fact that we're bringing the people together, by the fact that when the lights go out for 10 days, the one thing that still worked was South Huntington School District. That the one thing that still kept them together was the South Huntington School District. So that's our goal. Email loops. Jared has hooked us up to the whole community. If it happens, boom, electronically, and you know about it a moment later. Again, we made a decision, as we sat there today, this was a great day for us, that those were going to happen in Spanish next year as well. I can't believe I've actually done this, but I forced myself onto Facebook. We'll do the same thing. Jackie and Jared will come in and say, we're working on this, boom, it's on Facebook. Boom, it's on Twitter. We're out there with it. And there's a reason. The civilian media will hijack the message if we don't let them. Civilian media is a nice term I learned from someone for the people that sit on Facebook and beat up political leaders, school districts, and government agencies all day long. There are no solutions, there are just complaints. So we counter. We counter with the things that are going well. We admit the mistakes, but we counter. Because the final piece I'll finish with is, there are grenade launchers. And you know what they do. The grenade launchers destroy your Common Core meeting. You have a Common Core meeting, you want to have honest dialogue, and they want to talk about testing. And they want to talk about, we're not here for ourselves, we're here for those who have no voice. Well, those who have no voice are complaining. You know, I think you might be here for yourself. So what we do is we respect them, we validate their discussion, and we say, this is a productive meeting tonight. We're here to share, but we're not here to talk about the provision of education. We're not here to do that. So if you're looking to do that, you're in the wrong place. So we constantly move that message positive, and through these connection devices, that's our push.
Two other things that I will just add in terms of Facebook and Twitter is just, again, it's another way to bring community members into the fold. Because there are so many community members who are involved in those social media networks. It's another voice for somebody who may not come to the school and give you feedback, but now they have a way to do that, to provide that. And then last is just attending and being visible. We ask our parents to come to events. We ask our community members to come to events. We say we have an open door policy, but are we as administrators going to events? And we as a cabinet, and you know, Dr. Bernardo really goes to everything, and I mean everything. We try to go to as many school events, as many community events, as many county events that we possibly can, because we want to be visible and we want to be with our community and with our school district team.
And let me just add to that, because I think it was Friday, Dave, went to a wake for the son of one of our food service workers. It took about 15 minutes. When I got there, I think everybody in food services was at the wake. My 15 minutes meant much more to that family than anything I had to sacrifice to be there. The t-shirts, hundreds of people with t-shirts with this kid's picture on it, young man's picture on it. My 15 minutes meant so much to them that I think I could have anything I want in the cafeteria for about a year. But I did that, and then that night, Dr. Bernardo went again. And I don't know how long he stayed, but sometimes your presence just matters. People know when you're partnering with them. It's more than them coming to us. It's sometimes us spending 15 minutes doing something not school related for our community. And I think we both do that.
And Monica said before,
Yeah.
that not that this is why you're doing it, ever,
No.
but that lays the groundwork
Yeah.
for a more difficult conversation, for when you don't agree on something, where you have to be objective about something that they don't want. It really lays the groundwork. And years ago, Bill Parcells said, one of my favorite lines, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Once people know you care, the world is your oyster. And so we go out of our way. Sometimes it means going to the three of us to 7 events in a night, 5, 6 events a night. We've gone from things where it's 20 minutes, 40 minutes, 30 minutes, 20 minutes at 2 different ends of Long Island. And you know, you're drinking coffee in the car to make sure it happens, but that's the job. That's really the job. That's the role of capturing people's hearts and minds for your district, for your kids.
So
Okay,
you want to talk a little bit about parent responsibility?
So we're very upfront with our parents that this is a partnership. They have rights and they have responsibilities. This is right from our code of conduct. I'm not going to read it for you, but it tells people, yes, we're here. If you do your part, we'll do our part too. You have some responsibilities at home that you can't pass over to the school district, and we're going to respect your right to be a parent.
And this is just an excerpt, but
Just one.
you know, parents entering the district know from day one what we expect and what they can expect from our school district, and that's really important. So just some of the parent-family engagement activities that we do throughout the year, I think you've heard about some of them, which are a through line, but how are they supported with STLE grants? Because I think, obviously we're here at the STLE convening conference, so we felt it was really important to at least point out a few areas where STLE has impacted that. So our coach positions. Our coach positions are part of our Career Ladder initiative, but they have been helping our staff to become comfortable so that they can go out and get the message to our families and talk to our community members and be the first person that a parent can go to and say, I just don't get it, help me. But they needed that support, they needed that help. We were able to build in a parent outreach coordinator to work with community-based organizations and families of students of English language learners to create a council of parents who could be parent leaders of students who are not necessarily English speakers. We needed some leadership in that area, and so our parent outreach coordinator is starting to build that community for us. A college and career readiness coach to work with students and families to think about post-secondary opportunities, to explore, to set up fairs, to set up internship opportunities in the evenings, to be with parents, to be that face that they can come to and say, or for the child to be able to go to them and say, I'm interested in this, what are my choices, what's out there, and to make those connections with local organizations, local businesses, internships, etc.
And then, Jay, the fact that these people are teachers, the fact that they're in the field, gives them a street cred that a lot of times administrators don't have. You have to admit that. There's a certain degree of suspect. Although the three of us still consider ourselves teachers. I introduce myself as a teacher. I don't introduce myself as an administrator. I'm a teacher. We should be teachers. We're teachers of teachers and teachers of kids. However, there are people that don't feel that. So as soon as someone is a teacher, there's a certain degree of relationship, and there's a certain degree of trust that comes, and we have to admit that. It's a little bit different than they trust us. Hopefully we get past that with them, but these people haven't. We've got to, the grant has allowed us to get in there and get those people on a place where they can lead for us, sometimes better than us.
So just some other activities that we run throughout the year. Again, we talked about PTA parent academies. So STLE really helped us with that. We developed these parent academies at the request of parents to actually walk them through Common Core curriculum and lessons, to give them resources and websites that they could go to. Our help program was an evening program that we created for families of parents who are not English native speakers. And so they go for an hour of English instruction and then an hour of life skills instruction, computer, job, etc. And then their children in another room have homework help. So we had these fantastic work opportunities for the parents, and we had these fantastic opportunities for kids. And the teachers just loved the experience of working with these families, so that's been very successful. ESL parent meetings, library workshops, community forum, parent university, which Jackie will be talking about a little bit further, Project Excel, and then we do this health and wellness fair. So again, it's not just about academics, it's also about health and wellness. And that's another big event that we have. So now we're going to kind of shift into Parent University, which is kind of our culminating event for the year, although it's not a one and done. It's really built on all the work that we do throughout the year, and it's just enormous. So I'm going to let you kind of walk through topic development, implementation, and evaluation.
So what we do for our Parent University is we go to our parents and kind of ask them, what do they want to know more about? Are they struggling with their kids? Is something going on? What do they need to know? And then we have a wonderful committee that includes parents, teachers, administrators, community members, community leaders, to kind of put the day together. So we have probably, last year I think we had 47 workshops. 47 workshops.
In 3 languages.
Right. In Haitian Creole, we have a growing Haitian Creole population. They don't identify themselves as at registration. They just say are black. But we find out later that we have a growing Haitian Creole population that also has, they need information about how to be successful in our schools. We work on that. We got that from our parents and from our social workers. Things on the Common Core. all kinds of topics that people needed more information about. We had an issue around bereavement in our community. We had a couple of grandpas and grandmas pass away that were really significant in their children's lives, and their parents wanted to know how to talk about bereavement, how to talk about death and dying with their children. Surveying people is important. Getting the information from them is important. They tell us things that we don't want to know. Like, we want to do this on a Saturday. Oh, God. We can't do it on a Saturday. We'll never get all these people to come, but volunteer their time, because ultimately, this is a volunteer thing for us. None of our staff gets paid to participate. So, then our subcommittees. From that steering group, we have someone that does workshops and speakers. They go out all over the island, look for people who are expert in bereavement or whatever it is that the parents and the staff think the families want to know about. We try to find an expert to do it. Then we do food. My God. Our time up? Okay. We do food. Can you imagine if we had 222 kids in our child care area, and then we told everyone we were going to invite them to dinner? So we have, I don't know, how many parents, 400 parents, plus our staff, plus our vendors, our speakers, our presenters, and 222 kids. And we said we were going to feed them. Like, oh my God. How, well, we went to our community for sponsors. We had a couple of the local restaurants decided they would sponsor the food for the evening. And they sent the staff from the restaurant to help, which was big. So we were able to feed everyone. We use our local youth organizations, so we have high quality childcare. It's hard to have people come and really bring their families if you're going to dump their kids somewhere. You need something good. So we use our local art school to do arts and crafts lessons and things like that. Our youth organization to bring experienced childcare people with them. And it's just too much. We get too many
One of
kids.
the local companies brings big smart boards.
Smart
show
boards.
videos, they do activities.
The things that we have in childcare is probably something that somebody would have in a summer camp program. One session here, one session. It's amazing. Everyone volunteering their time to do it. And then, of course, we give people a free T-shirt if they fill out our evaluation form, because we want the feedback so desperately. That's all. Those are our committees. This is parent quote. Is that what you wanted me to talk about?
Yeah, so I think just evaluation is key to any program that you're running. It's not just for the big programs, but it's throughout the whole year. You want to know what you're doing well and what you can improve upon and what you're missing and what you can do more of. We're not going to read all the quotes because I think you can read it for yourself, but I think that the quotes say a whole lot about the work. So we'll give you a second.
One of the things that Jack is particularly good at getting people to volunteer time and services. She really is. Jared's particularly good at getting grant money from the district. And both things are important because ultimately you have to have a balance. To some degree, when we talked about doing our parent engagement nights on Common Core, we had to pay our people. In other words, this is how they feed their families. They like to send their kids to the doctor too. They like to have them buy food for their kids too. So we understand that. So at that point, we paid our people for that. Then there are other things where they understand that tonight they're going to volunteer their time, but we've got some wonderful things coming in from the community where they're volunteering their services as well. So we try to create that balance so people don't always feel taken advantage of, but at the same token, they feel like they can volunteer and be a part of something special at times too. And we kind of go one for me, one for you, back and forth like that. Because to some degree, we need everyone involved. And to some degree too, sometimes they need to get a few shekels for being involved. We have to remember that this is what they do for a living, but we also have to remember that people are willing to volunteer at the same time and keep that nice balance.
So just how do you know the impact? I think you can take a look at this quote and kind of see just a small window into a parent's view of what Parent University really means to this particular parent.
Anyone here from Suffolk County? Suffolk? Suffolk, you go to Suffolk, okay. Nassau County? In Suffolk County, we have a new deputy police commissioner, somebody who's in charge of all the police officers in the county. She was our keynote speaker. Why her? Because she has her hands in the community at many, many different levels. And also, she's our partner. We need people in key places that can help us help our children. Our parents loved hearing from the deputy commissioner. They loved her message. She could have bombed. The fact that she was present was a big deal for our community. And other great people that we bring. We brought someone in from, did we fly him in from California, right? Matthew Johnson, he's an author. His book is Positive Parenting with a Plan. He wrote his book in English and in Spanish. I cheated. I had my niece and her husband come to his workshop so I could get some personal feedback. They loved him. Why? Because if you're raising little children and you don't know everything yet, to have a resource there in your school district who's able to give you something to take home with you, and you're able to reflect on that information later, it's not the one-shot deal. So they love Commissioner Lewis, but they really love Matthew Johnson, and we keep doing this over and over again. We start planning for this like 6 or 7 months before it happens, because we spend most of the time getting feedback on what it is that people want us to do together.
You know, and Jackie just mentioned that this person wrote their book in 2 languages. We've mentioned a lot of things we've done. It's key, we feel, to depoliticize these discussions. There will be people who, when we start talking about we're going to send out the newsletter in English and Spanish, there'll be people who want to debate immigration with us. There'll be parents who want to debate politics with us. We talk about Common Core, they want to debate state aid with us. They want to debate testing with us.
Right.
Those derail an important mission. In other words, what we say to them is, this is not political. The fact that we're doing our newsletter in English and Spanish tomorrow, the fact that Jackie brings in the person who writes a book, has nothing to do with my political views, Jackie's views. You don't know my views. All I know is these are the babies sitting in front of us. And we have to teach the kids in front of us, or it kills your house price, it kills your kids' results, and it kills some baby's scores and learning. That's the discussion. And every time they want to turn the discussion political, we turn it to just kids and to just the community value and everything else. And I'm telling you that we never engage in those discussions. And as soon as we do, there's that guy again talking about that. That's not the issue. The issue is these are the things we have to do to teach the kids in front of us in the community that we work in. That's it. That's all it's about, because that's the right thing to do, and nobody could argue that. But I'm telling you, you're going to be baited. The more you do these involvement things, the more you're baited by people who want to have talk radio discussions on both the right and the left. Don't have them, because as soon as you have one, you're in trouble. Whether I believe or don't believe, it's our moral responsibility to translate things is not important. It's what we have to do to teach the kids in front of us right now, and that's real important.
So just to kind of sum up in terms of sustainability, because obviously all of these things take time and funds and money. How do you sustain these types of projects? Again, this is not just related to our Pairing University, but throughout the year, how do you sustain these types of family engagement activities? Well, teamwork. You have to engage your student services, psychologists, social workers, counselors, nurses, agencies, administrators, teachers, etc., families. Commitment. You need the commitment of the Board of Ed and Cabinet and buildings and PTA and the community, and you need funding. So how do you get some of that funding? Yeah, you can get a lot of in-kind funds and you can get a lot of donations, but you also need other kinds of funds. So grant money, local donations, going into the general fund and saying this is important, we need to do this, and then sponsors. So that's how we sustain it ongoing, and we don't just rely on one funding source or another. So that's what we have for you, and now we're going to transition to the next section.
And so, thank you. And we have about 15 minutes left. So what we'll do is give you time to at your tables, give you about 10 minutes to have your conversations at your table, and then we'll take any questions that you have at the end, so that you do have an opportunity to ask us some questions. So why don't you just huddle and have your conversation. That's how I ran my class. Okay. So any questions? We want to make sure that we're here to answer any questions that you have. Any questions you would like to ask either any of us? Yes, Frank?
It's not really a question, it's comment. I had the good fortune to visit your middle school within the last month or so. And I was just impressed with the entire building and the entire climate there. I walked in and the place was relatively quiet. There was not a uniformed guard at the door. There was a woman who may or may not have been a security person, who may or may not have been a teacher or a parent. I don't know what her role was other than to welcome us and lead us in the right direction. We went upstairs and waited for the bell to ring. There were 3 or 4 students waiting for the bell to ring to go to their next class. They were standing there. Somebody was reading a book. Somebody was just leaning up against their backpack. When the bell rang, I don't even know what the kids did. I know what they didn't do. They didn't jump, they didn't yell, they didn't scream, there was no sagging, there was no fighting, there was no craziness. And we walked in and the kids shortly followed, and they sat down and they took out their iPads and they did their thing. And and I think, so I just wanted to share that with the group and tell you how impressed I was from my point of view. And I think that it may be a result, I don't know if this is the cause, but just the environment or the context of we're in it together, but not only the teachers and the administrators and the secretaries and the security people, but you have rights as a parent, but you have responsibilities as a parent, and we're all responsible for how our kids conduct themselves. So you must be doing something right, and
Good kids,
I want to know more. Thank
Thank you, because I feel that exact way when I walk into that middle school.
you. Yeah.
And I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I just loved the way you talked about the difference between parent involvement and parent engagement, and then how you gave us examples of that. Because with the STLE freeing the coaches, I'm thinking how relevant and important this work is. And we've laid out a year, but you know what? We were looking at involving parents. Now we got to engage them. So now you've given me a different mindset as I go back to do the work. So thank you.
And it's more difficult. We were actually just chatting about that. The level of, the more sharing you do and the more engagement, the more you open yourself up for, debate and discussion, and that, and the same 5 or 6 people again that will try to hijack it. But, we kind of said it's worth it. It's worth it to get, it's worth it to have that grind and keep at the message. It makes more sense. It's kind of like the theory that you give out the teacher assignments on the Friday before Labor Day because then nobody can call anybody. Well, they're still going to call each other. It's not going to be furious. You might as well give them out August 1st and have it out for a month.
Any other comments or questions? I'll just tell you, we have 3 minutes, and I'm just going to tell you something that happened that I called Karen Mapp and I said, I think I did it when something happened in my school, and I think I said to you that I had a very large school, 1,800 students, and my student population, 70% Latino, 30% African American, about 97% Title I. And when I took the school, I was the 5th principal in 5 consecutive years. So it was a huge job and task to take on. But one of the things that used to happen in the building when the tests were in January, remember that? It was right after the holidays, and we know what happens during the holidays. Children go away, and they don't come back. And that happened in that building in a massive way. And the school constantly got dinged for its participation rate with the subgroups, because those were the children who were leaving and not coming back. They weren't back for the test, and they weren't back for the makeup, because it was all right after the holiday, and parents are not going to pay a couple of $100 for their children to go away to come back in a week. It's just not going to happen. And so I finally felt that we moved from involvement to engagement when we had a parent-teacher meeting. You have your monthly meetings and association meeting. And we had shifted our meetings from one afternoon and evening session a month to Saturdays. So Saturday morning, once a month, we had our PTA meetings. Because all the parents came with their shopping carts and their laundry bags, and they just put it in the back of the auditorium and came down and sat down for a while. We also shifted some of our class trips that would occur during the school week to Saturdays. So sometimes right after the PTA meeting was a class trip. And more parents were able to accompany their children. So I would prefer to pay my teacher for a day on Saturday to take their children somewhere rather than 2 hours after school for after school tutoring kind of, session that is not getting any impact anymore, right? So anyway, I said one October, listen, you can't send your kids away. It's killing us. It's killing us with our participation rate. And I have been talking to the parents about what this thing was with participation rate. Like, you don't understand the impact that it has on the school. And I shared the data in September, and we talked about it, and I really explained it. And one parent said in the auditorium, well, I already bought my ticket, and my child is leaving. And 10 parents turned around and just verbally attacked. Do you know what that's doing to our school? And I stood there like, we just shifted from involvement to engagement because they were just as invested in this topic as I was. And so when you have engagement, you see it, you feel it, it's palatable. Parents shift their conversations with you, and sometimes they even come to you to tell you information, like a parent did with me when I walked into the school one Saturday, and she came in behind me, and we actually grew up together, not too far from the school, and she was my older sister's best friend, and she said to me, and she called me Monty because that's what they called me when we were growing up, and she said, Monty, Jessica is going to be held over this year. And test scores hadn't come back. And I said, what are you talking about? And she said, she's not going to 5th grade. And you know what? It's okay. I said, what are you talking about? She's going to be held over. She said, there's no way that she passed that test. I said, how do you know there's no way that she passed that test? Because she's reading on a level I. And you know what that means. She's a 4th grader. And a level I, she will never make it. And so I already know, and I was standing there like, wow. Like, not only do you know the reading level that your child is reading on, but you know what it means to that extent where you're telling me, girl, please, I'm getting her ready for summer school. She's just gonna have to get over it. And what I need you to do is tell me what I can do in addition to summer school, so that I can get her up to speed for 4th grade next year. There's no way she's going to 5th grade. 4th graders, we're over it. I get it. And we just need to come up with a plan, and I need your help with that. And I was so impressed that she had that level of understanding. And so that's when you start to know that you actually have a shift. So I just want to leave you with that. I know it's time for you to go to your next session. But thank you for coming, and we enjoyed your company. We hope you enjoyed ours.